Going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, with another episode of Black Fathers Now. And I'm going to tell y'all, and we just mentioned this before we got started, I got an OG in the game, right? A real, like a triple OG in the game.
But not that. Come on now. Aaliyah said age ain't nothing but a number. Watch yourself now.
Got a triple OG in the game. We got my man, Dr. Vibe. And Dr. Vibe is a Toronto, Canada-based father and manhood advocate who literally works with fathers, men, and organizations to help fathers and men become their best selves, right? And if you don't know already, if you've kind of been under a rock, he's also the host of an award-winning show based out of Toronto called The Dr. Vibe Show. And he's truly a blessing to the world. And we're going to get a deep dive into him, his story, how he came up, and in essence, what literally led to the Dr. Vibe Show and the over 2,000 interviews that he's done and the impact that he's had across the world. We're going to dive into that. So, fellas and the ladies listening too, because y'all like to tune in to hear what we're talking about, let's welcome my man, Dr. Vibe. What's up, brother?
Everything's up and just trying to make a nickel out of a dime. You know what I'm saying? And I'd like to say thank you so much, Mike, for allowing me to share with you and your audience. It's a blessing. I like to say I'm blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. So I'm speaking it that someone, through listening to even 5 seconds of this conversation, will get a blessing, because I'm here to bless. And as they say, I'm too blessed to be stressed. And so I just say thank you so much. We were introduced by a mutual acquaintance. A gentleman named Doug Minter. Doug Minter, for some reason, told us that we'd have something in common. I said, the only thing I know we have in common is bald heads and black men, but we seem to have more in common than that. So we're just, we're just having some fun and changing men's and fathers and boys' lives one person at a time.
I love it, man. And I love what you just said. Blessed and highly favored, but you're a magnet for miracles and a solution to someone's problems. Man, that in itself is fascinating. Like the magnet for miracles. It means you have to be doing something in which you attract miracles, right? And being a solution to someone's problems, you're being intentional about finding solutions, right? Again, we're not always the people that hold the solution here in our hands, but if we're a magnet for miracles and we go in with the mindset of being a solution to someone's problems, we might not be able to find it, but I bet you we can connect to someone who can find a solution or has a solution readily available.
I fully agree with that. I say to people that one of my goals, one of my bucket list things is that if I need help, it's either a phone call, email, or a virtual call away. And I think that's very, very important that you want to serve. And you made a very important point there that you may not be able to solve someone's challenge, but you may be able to refer them to someone who can help them with their challenge, right? Because we can't know everything, but ourselves. And I think I have a feeling we'll come up with this or deal with this conversation topic later on. We need to know how to ask.
Man, dude, I'm gonna tell you, from a biblical perspective, it always is stated, asking ye shall receive, knocking the door will be open, right? I mean, that is something that we have to be mindful of, regardless of somebody's, belief structure. There's wisdom in that particular, philosophy. And you mentioned something there that your hope or your wish or your goal is that if you ever need help, it's always a phone, an email, or a virtual call away. And I think that is such a powerful thing, especially from the perspective of coming from men, right? Because again, when we deal with the concept of manhood, we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be this rock. We're supposed to be the solution provider. But being the solution provider doesn't mean that you are the one that's providing solution. You have access to the solution.
Yeah. Well, we are humans before we're men. All right. Human before man. So I'm very much interested. I was in a conversation, let's say yesterday, and someone said, Dr. Vibe, you really are particular about words. I say words are powerful.
Yes.
They're very, very powerful. And they said, I don't remember who asked me, but they said, like, how did you get into that so much? And I said, well, for many, many years, I did a podcast. So when you do, and now we'll get into it right now. What we're doing right now, folks, is not a podcast, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people say podcast. This is more like a video podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but the podcast in a true sense of the word is audio only.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So many, many years, I had to relate and engage with individuals, most of them who I didn't know, by listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't see the body language, couldn't see their eyes, couldn't see their face. And that's been a blessing for me in regards to my listening skills, because now I'm really listening intensely on what the person is saying. And sometimes I say one little word can make a huge shift.
Huge. And you know, it's interesting. And it's funny, you know, again, shout out to Doug Mentor for, you know,
Doug, the Black Chamber of Commerce. Hail up, Doug.
That's right. That's right, man. He connected the dots between you and I, because there's such, and he noticed, or he recognized that there was some synergy between you and I and how we operate. And it's funny, prior to the Black Fathers Now, this podcast, which is a podcast, it's released audio and I'm releasing the video of this. So for those, some people will watch it on YouTube or wherever, others will be listening to this in an audio only version. But prior to Black Fathers Now, I had a show called the Fit Urban Life Show. And that one ran for 2 years, from 2015 to 2017. And that one was done completely audio. So I didn't have the opportunity to look at people when I was interviewing. So therefore you had to listen for keywords, listen for voice inflection. You had to listen for opportunities to connect the dots without being able to look at body cues. And I'll even take it back a step further. And this is interesting, another connection from the standpoint of being able to listen. When my wife and I first met, I was living in Knoxville, Tennessee. She was living in Beaumont, Texas. And this was in 2005, prior to all the face chats and FaceTimes and Skypes and virtual calls. So we literally spent hours upon hours on the telephone talking. Mm-hmm. Like before we even physically laid eyes on each other, we were on the phone for over a month, spending 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours a day on the phone, just talking, picking up on things, learning how to communicate without even having the video chat option. And so to your point, that is a humongous skill that I think, I mean, technology is awesome, right? But that is a skill that gets, you know, alleviated or gets removed from the equation when you no longer have to just listen, because you have all the other cues that you can pull from. So to your point, I see a kindredness in how we operate based off of, you know, that history itself.
Well, I learned many lessons along the way from various individuals. And a long time ago, someone told me, if it's details, just details, use text. But if it involves emotion, you either do it visually or over a phone.
Details, use text. If it requires emotion, you need to be visual or audio. You know, it's interesting with that. Like, so with some work that I get done virtually, I use the group Fiverr, or the app called Fiverr, Fiverr. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like
I have a story about Fiverr if you want it.
Okay. We can get into that a little bit later, but it made me think about what you're talking about there, because, you know, when I've gotten projects done, you know, your projects get done to the level in which you can communicate the instructions. Right. So whenever I sent something out to get done and it didn't come back the way that I wanted it to, usually when I reverse engineer it and I look at the instructions that I was giving, a lot of times I was not detailed in my instructions, because the people that I'm contracting, looking at their work and looking at their history, typically they can handle anything that I need them to handle. But the issue was not in the actual you know, provider of the service. It was in me communicating that. But again, I was going via text. It was not an emotion. They couldn't hear my voice inflection on how I emphasize this and emphasize that, or they couldn't see my body language. It was just simple words. And a lot of times there's a communication issue because they're in some other country doing the work. And so to that point, it was all based on me being able to effectively communicate. And so I think that kind of leads into what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I'm going to drop a very quick story about Fiverr.
Come on.
As always, that many years ago, I was looking to get a new logo done. And one of my closest associates and closest friends, also a business associate, said, go to Fiverr. So I did some research on Fiverr. I saw someone that like a 4.5 out of 5 rating. And I and they said, what are you looking for? Logo. I gave the information. They hit it on the first shot.
Wow. That's all.
So the
But
logo that people see with the Dr. Vibe show was done for $5. And it
man,
was done on the first shot.
check this out. I'll even tell you, I mean, and it's funny. Again, Doug knew what he was doing, connecting the dots here. The logo that you see with Black Fathers Now was exactly the same thing. It was, I had a vision. I had a silhouette. I wanted a silhouette done of my family, the four of us, and I wanted Black Fathers Now. And then the tagline, bringing the village to the brothers at the bottom. I asked him to do that. And literally, I believe mine might've been $10, but either $5 or $10. Either way, the logo that I have done, we need to, we probably need to cut that part out and send it to Fiverr and tell them to pay us for that snippet there.
Promo. Now that's many years ago. Because I have a great community now, I have at least 2 other people who will do it no charge for me.
That's awesome.
And to the point now, I actually have someone who does my websites no charge.
Wow. Again, I think we mentioned this before we got started. Your network is your net worth, right? I mean, that's what it's all about.
Make sure your net is working, folks. Like Mike knows, I don't use that word. So I don't use that word. I like to have I want to have a strong community.
I love it.
I want a community. I don't want a network. I want a community that I'm willing to serve. Not willing. I am passionate about serving. And that they're willing to serve me.
Man, I love the concept because, again, I do utilize the word network a lot, right? And I think that is something that we need to rethink and refocus and almost substitute the word community for network. But before we jump into that, man, let's get back into.
We're actually gonna jump into something.
No. We're gonna get back into this. But before we get going, I like to always, from a format perspective, I like to have the brothers always give shout outs before we get started, because who are we without our village? And you mentioned community, and I think this was a good segue into the whole concept of shout outs. Who is it in your life, or who do you like to give a shout out? Who would you like to give a shout out to that allows Dr. Vibe to be Dr. Vibe?
How long of a show you got?
Man, look at here. This is all about you, brother. So however long you need, take it.
It's all about us.
It's us.
God.
Absolutely.
My family. There's so many. So I'm just going to pick a number of names. The Dundas family. There is my wife. I want to say family, but I also want to have her in particular. Mario Armstrong. Mike, what's his name? Can't remember. But oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Okay, some other people. The Libsyn organization that hosts all my podcasts. I want to shout out Jonathan Shaw and Dave. Am I blanking here? David Blackman. I also want to shout out every individual that's been on the Dr. Vibe conversation over the last over 10 years.
Wow.
Anyone who couldn't come on because they couldn't make it because of a commitment. I'd like to shout out every Black father, every Black man, every Black family around the world. Who else? Mike, I can't remember his last name right now, engineer-wise, who helped me get my technical setup all in place, who I never met before, who spent 7 hours on the phone getting everything set up with me, and we've never physically met. Wow. Also, Ray Ortega, who hosts a great conversation called The Podcaster Studio, who helped me level up my broadcasts, who said, Dr. Vibe, your goal is to make sure that when it comes to online hosts, that people think of you first. And it's never forgotten that. And I use that in all my applications I want. He said, have people have top of mind awareness when it comes to you. I could go on, but we don't have a whole day because you'll be editing this forever. And I also want to thank all the generations, especially of color, that we're not where we used to be, but thank God we aren't where we used to be, but thank God we're not where we were.
Absolutely. Wow.
Well, I just put it out there. there's a whole list. If I would have known, I would have given you like 200 people. And if anyone's watching this and I didn't say your name specifically, it's because of my head, not my heart.
There it is. There it is. There it is, man. Look, it's interesting. You mentioned all those that came before us as well. And I think we'd be remiss if we don't mention that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and to your point and I think that's so important, especially as Black men, is we should not live in our past, but we should always know and pay homage to our history, because that in itself is the platform in which we're building upon. That legacy is what we're building upon. And though we all might have different family lineages and have, different experiences, different nuances here or there, we have to be mindful of the fact that we are, are what they say, I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams or wildest imagination, or I'm the manifestation of my ancestors' wildest imagination, and so I think that's extremely important.
We learn from our past. We don't have to live our past.
Yes, 100%.
Right? It's a chalkboard. So you write things on the chalkboard. You can just wipe it off and learn from what's written on the board. You don't have to live it and repeat it unless it's absolutely positive. There are some things in history that will always be good. Mm-hmm. Some basic foundational principles that we should always carry on, no matter what the day, hour, evening, day, etc., day of the month, day of the year. There's some common principles that I fully believe that are good forever and ever, but not everything is good, but you want to learn from it. You don't have to adapt it.
Learn from it. You don't have to adapt it. I love it, man. I love it, man. The thing is, and I think that goes back to the whole concept of your intentionality. Like when you mention, you're a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem, it's the concept of intention. And so even with challenging historical precedents being set or things that happen historically that are not great, but they serve as lessons for us to go forward, if we're intentional about seeing the opportunity and seeing the lesson, even in the midst of the pain, then I believe that we are setting ourselves up for growth and development, no matter what type of situation that we encounter.
I'll just piggyback on that. And I also want to stress that make sure the growth and development benefits more than you.
Yes. This is, honestly, and I'll be, that's the reason why at the beginning of this podcast, I always start off with shout outs, right? Because, part of it is, I'm a firm believer in the fact that, I am because of others. Right. And I also, because others have done so much, they've prayed for me, they've poured into me, they've opened up doors for me, they've called in recommendation letters and, advocated on my behalf without me even knowing it. I see that, or I feel that it's my duty to do that for other people, right? It's not just me wanting to be on the top of the mountain somewhere. Tupac said it best, ain't no fun if the homies can't have none, right? I don't want to be on the top of the mountain by myself and nobody else can get there so that I can look down on anyone. My whole thing is, how do we understand that it is a village? It is a community, not necessarily just a network that is coming together, and we're all supposed to mutually benefit each other, but then also leave a legacy for those that are coming behind us.
Yeah. Oh, actually, another organization I do have to give a shout out to is the Good Men Project.
Okay.
It's one of the most viewed sites in the world for men. They were the first organization that said, we want to syndicate your content. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, I've never met them, and I'm the only online broadcaster that has a weekly slot every 2:30 Eastern time, Tuesday afternoon. Something from my content, some of my content goes on their website, and their website gets 3 million unique visitors a month and 6 million page views a month. And I've had that relationship for the last 7.5 years.
Wow. Again, it's bigger than you.
Oh yeah. And and how that was crazy, because I didn't even know what they were until someone told me about them, and I sent some stuff to them. And about 2.5 weeks later, one of the executive editors at the time called me via Skype from they called me from a, whatchamacallit, cafe in Singapore. Mm-hmm. They said, Dr. Vibe, we want your stuff. How can we get it on? There you go.
Wow, man. I think that goes back to this content, this concept that you dropped, being a magnet for miracles. Because again, a magnet implies that you are attracting. A magnet implies that you are attracting, but you have to do something internally so that you're in a position to attract. And
Well,
it's
yeah,
interesting.
I agree with that. I think one of the things is, and I'm just thinking about this now. One of the things it relates to is listening to people,
Mm,
investing time to listen to people.
mm,
Right? I look. I most of the time I will tell people, I will answer your call. If not, leave me a voicemail message and I will get back to you. And just uh, time is the most valuable thing we have. Oh, another group of guys I got to shout out is my Dr. Vibe allies.
mm,
That's Omri Morris in West Coast, California. There's also Victory Unlimited, who does a great podcast. He's out
mm,
of Tennessee, and then Clive Henry, who's based in Nottingham, England.
mm.
And well, I've mentioned Jonathan Shaw already. Most of we have been doing online conversations once a month, pretty consistently for the last 6 years.
Mm. Wow.
Once a month, we get together, go live audio online, and this is the thing you got to look at it. Henry Morris is based California.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Shaw, Toronto. Victory Unlimited is based in Memphis, Tennessee. And
Mm-hmm.
then Clive Henry's in Nottingham, England.
Mm.
And that's another gentleman, Mike Ramey, who comes on with us periodically, is based in Indiana. So you look at it, the time difference
Mm-hmm.
between California, where Henry Morris is,
Mm-hmm.
and where Clive Henry is about 8 hours difference.
Absolutely. Actually, you think about it, it's longer than that because England is 7 hours ahead or 6 hours ahead. And
So it's
then,
9.
yeah, so it's a 9 hour difference. Wow.
So
That's,
and
mm,
and Clive Henry is there every conversation. He gets up at 3 a.m.
wow.
every time we do a conversation.
Wow.
And these gentlemen
Dedication.
they've never met each other before, but they are, well, some have, but they are committed and sharing their hearts as Black men every once a month, and they've been doing, we took a little bit of time over the last few months, some time off. It looks like we're
Mm,
regurgitating it again and making it happen. And that's a phenomenal conversation, because I don't think there's too many places in the world, period, where you have a group of men from that wide a geographic
mm.
spread getting on and sharing about serious conversations every month.
Man, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, how do I figure out a way to get in the midst of that conversation? Because I would love to be a part of that. I mean, from the standpoint of sharing and pouring into, and yeah. I mean, I'm putting it out there right
We
now.
can take that offline if you want to. And it's funny, Henry Morris, what was it? It was Victor Unlimited. So let's call it Dr. Vibe Allies.
Mhm.
And that, and
I'm with it.
and so if you want to be part of it, we can certainly talk offline, and you can get involved in the next conversation. It's something I look forward to.
Well, we'll talk offline about that for sure.
All right.
And so to your story, man, you mentioned the concept of Dr. Vibe.
Yep.
Walk us through your history, walk us through your origin story, man. Like, I'd love to know the backstory of Dr. Vibe, and then also what led you to the creation of the Dr. Vibe show.
Okay, so as I use this line a lot, some people may get tired of it, but I love saying it. Many years ago, when I used to have hair,
I'm the same way, man. I'm follically
yeah,
challenged. Yeah, yeah.
actually, it goes a little bit further back. When I finished university, I was so happy, because I said, I'm tired of doing essays. I'm tired of reading stuff that I can't really relate to, is not going to apply to me. And in Toronto, many years ago, there was a bookstore called Burke's Bookstore, downtown
Mm-hmm.
Toronto. And I had a very good relationship with the owners, Sam and Rita Burke. Have to shout them out. Wonderful people, absolutely wonderful, wonderful people. Walked into the store one day, and there was a book there called Black Men, Obsolete, Single, and Dangerous,
Mm.
written by Haki Matabuti. And I hope I didn't butcher his last name that badly. And I said, and it's stories in the African, this part I may not get right, so correct me if I'm wrong, people. Stories of the African American family. But the first part of it, Black Men, Obsolete, Single, and Dangerous, that part is right. The
Mm-hmm.
book, okay, let me get it. So I sat in the bookstore, read a chapter, then said, I'm going to buy this book. And I read that book all night, read the whole book in one night.
Mm.
And something inside of me said, you know what? I want to create a platform where Black men can just share about whatever they want. This will be a platform where you're not going to hear about the typical traditional stuff that you see in the media, us being entertainers, and
Mm.
that's whether it's performing on a stage or performing on a surface.
Mm.
They can talk about whatever they want, and to create a safe and brave space for them to share about whatever they want. And I said to myself, okay, I want to do something online. This is going back a bit. And all I
Mm-hmm.
really had was a laptop and a dream.
Mm.
The first conversation, it's still up on the Dr. Vibe Show website. I have did it on my dining room table with a co-host who spent a little bit of time with me. And we talked about Michael Vick and the dogs.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm going back, people. Michael Vick and
Yes.
the dogs. There'll be some people who go, what is he talking about? That's what Google's for. Go
Yes.
up.
Well, look. You're talking to a brother from Augusta, Georgia, who was
Yeah,
living in Atlanta at the time. So,
there you go.
our fan base, primarily in the States, Black folks are very familiar with Michael Vick, the dogs, the story. So that was your first conversation.
First conversation.
Wow.
We did it. We did a few other conversations. And as you notice, folks, I won't use podcasts.
Mhm.
I use conversations because one of my taglines, if you look in the back, is the it's the home of epic conversations. I like to have conversations. I don't like doing interviews.
Mm.
When you're coming on the Dr. Vibe Show, you're not on an interview. Sorry.
Mm.
That's I don't want to make it a job. I want to make it a positive experience.
Words are important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I actually will the parking lot where we're going just on the side, like especially when new friends come on the Dr. Vibe Show, I tell them, they ask, so what are we going to talk about? They say, whatever you want to talk about.
Mm.
I'm so nervous. It's going to be an interview. We're not doing an interview. We're doing a conversation. And you just feel the air come out of their body
Mm-hmm.
when you said, because it's just going to be a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
relaxation. Okay, let's jump back on the road that you're on. So after a period of time, myself and the coach said, you know what? We need to take a break. All right. So we took some time off, and I'm a firm believer that many things have a birth, death, and resurrection.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we came back, started doing more conversations, and I said, you know what? People are going to just tired of listening to us all the time. What can we do? All right. Don't think I'm too smart of a guy. I said, well, let me just get some of my friends in and let's start doing some of this with a group of people. I would literally hang out with my friends, dinner parties, whatever. And after a while, I would just this is funny. I'm going to show this. I'm going to show you the microphone I used to use way back when.
Uh-huh.
This microphone's called a Blue Snowball.
Wow.
USB microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just plop it on a dining room table, plug it in, USB wides in my laptop, and we just have conversations with groups of people.
Mm. Wow.
Just started off like that. Next iteration, well, we're doing conversations with people we know. What about doing conversations with people I don't know?
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a gentleman named Michael Williams. Back at that time, he was the first Black VJ host in Canada.
Okay.
There is the national video station in Toronto, in Canada, is called Much Music. Mm-hmm. He was the first Black person hired by that network.
Wow.
He still lives in Hamilton, which is about a 45-minute drive here from Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to him and said, Mike, would love to come and sit down, have you on the show. Okay, well, he said, Dr. Vibe, if you want to come, you got to come out and see me. I began to say to myself, well, what about 20, 30 minutes in on my drive he has to cancel?
Mm-hmm.
Said, there's got to be another way. I said, let's start. How can I do conversation with people in my own house, just from my own house? Use the digital medium. So then I reached out to a gentleman, Ray Ortega, who I mentioned earlier, who I was online one day, and many, many years ago, I didn't like where my podcast was at. I wanted to level up my conversations. And lazy as I am sometimes, I looked at podcasting shows. His show was listed right there.
Mm-hmm.
In people, that's what you want when you want to be, as a lady told me a long time ago, you want to be Googleicious.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Up
Right?
top.
So
Up top on the search.
went to him. He gave me suggestions on how to level up my conversation within 24 hours. He changed my whole mindset. He helped the platform along. Then I reached out to him and said, Ray, I want to be able to do a lot of broadcasts from my house. How do I do it? Let me introduce you to this gentleman named Mike. Can't remember his last name right now. He's
Mm-hmm.
based in North Carolina. Reached out to him, said, Dr. Vibe, if you want to do this, you got to get a mixer. I
Mm-hmm.
said, Mike, the only mixers I know are in the clubs.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he said, well, if you want that, that's what you got to do. Another lesson. At that time, he had 25 years in audio engineering experience.
Mm.
So I shut my mouth,
And listened.
went, bought the mixer, and we spent about 6 to 7 hours on the phone getting my configuration right.
Mm.
So then I was able then to expand my reach.
Mm.
I've had conversations with individuals over a number of years. This is a long time ago. I had a conversation live with a Black gentleman from Jamaica who lives in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Had conversations with Black men in Australia.
Mm.
I've had conversations with women, men, mixed, all
Mm-hmm.
over the place. I mentioned already the Good Men Project. When that happened, that was a major, major win.
Mm-hmm.
That was a yes to get that credibility online. Done a number of different conversations all over the place. You know, I've had and people say, well, who are some of the famous people you've interviewed? And I say, well, I don't want to interview famous people. I just want to have conversations with people.
Man, that's
Right?
big. That's
I
big.
just want to have conversations with people, and just doing it consistently over the years. Credibility leads to profitability. I did not get into this to do it for money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm driven by purpose and not driven by money.
Mm.
You know, if you drive purpose, and the money will come if that's what you're after, but you want to be driven by purpose. And I've had, you know, and of course, and I'm gonna say I've had some downfalls too, even up to last Sunday. Yeah, we were supposed to have a conversation via this platform, Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
with the Minister of Children's, Family, and Social Development for Canada, because the Canadian government is now going to be giving out like $25 million to Black community organizations. Came into the Zoom room about 35 minutes before. It got ridiculously Zoom bombed.
Really?
Ridiculously. Racist comments, like racist comments towards me, racist comments around Black individuals, all over the place. We had to shut it down. Another time, long story short, within 20 minutes, I lost $10,000.
Mm.
Wow. I won't get into detail.
Okay.
I can get into it. So I've had the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just been blessed that most of it's been positive, but because it's bigger than me, and I, as much as possible, do with the right intent and the right attitude. And again, the intent, making sure it's bigger than me, has been very key. And I am certainly not perfect, believe me.
Mm.
And also patience.
Mm. It's interesting.
I don't know, like I'm wearing a T-shirt today that says, "Don't let your opportunities define your objectives."
Mm. He said, I can't see the shirt. It says, don't let your opportunities define your objectives.
Yes.
And, you know, that's interesting because a lot of people actually operate in the reverse. They base their objective on the opportunities presented.
Wrong.
I'm a firm believer in what you're saying there, because regardless of whether the opportunities are there or not, your objectives should supersede all of that. So your purpose, your calling, your intention, all of that should be going in a particular direction, irregardless of the current opportunities available. You notice I say the word current because, and I utilize this on a lot of different platforms, but one of my favorite books is a book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And the concept behind The Alchemist is the universe, and for me, my belief structure, the creator of the universe conspires to help you once you start pursuing your personal legend, right? So as you pursue your personal legend, the book states that the universe conspires, or my belief, the creator of the universe conspires to help you along on your journey. But it's after you start pursuing that purpose, pursuing that calling, you don't just start pursuing whatever's out there and then all of a sudden your calling comes. It's I stay inside and understand what your calling is, what your purpose is, and then follow that purpose and pursue it. And then the things start to clear up. I mean, I don't know if, a lot of people played football, but, I played football growing up and I played running back. And one of the things about playing running back is, sometimes the hole is not there when you get the ball. But right. If the offensive line does their job and the alignments are right and things are positioned in the right way, if you give it a second, that hole tends to open up. But you have to move in the direction of the hole that you're supposed to run in. And I think that is a perfect analogy in regards to don't allow the opportunity to define your objective. Have your objective walk. And again, but you also have to be very intentional and in tune with whether or not that's something that you're supposed to do, because sometimes we're not authentic in that. But if we're authentic in understanding that objective and realizing that, hey, this is the direction I'm supposed to walk in, walk, and the opportunities will be there.
Yeah, I'll just add on a few things to what you shared there. That's serious good stuff. One thing I will ask your audience, how many things go exactly the way you plan?
0.
Right? Right? So that's why I'm saying you're going to get different opportunities. Some opportunities are going to shut down. Some are going to open up. Life is not a straight line.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right? And of course, there's the black and white, but there's also the shades of gray.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. Talking about your athletic experience, here's something you'll probably not hear a lot. I refereed more games than I ever played. And wow. I'm glad I refereed and coached more games than I played, because I learned so much about life by refereeing and coaching. Now, people say, well, what are you talking about? Let me give you a perfect example. I refereed about 500 basketball games.
Wow. 500?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? Of all different age ranges, from public school to grown men.
Mm-hmm.
I will give you some of the great lessons that I learned from that. First of all, if you're a referee on the basketball court, on whatever surface, you got to pay attention to everything. Not just the people who are playing. There are people on the bench. There are coaches. There's the people who are watching. You have to have some knowledge, or at least semblance, of where the flow of the events are going. The best lessons one can learn from sports is how they apply them to the world outside of sports. When you're playing on a team, you're only as good as the worst player on your team.
Wow, that's true. That's
right?
true.
You're only as good as the worst player on your team. Learned so much from coaching, so much from refereeing. When you're refereeing, being in the right place at the right time. If you're not in the right place at the right time and you make a call, you're gonna get drama if you weren't in the right position to call it. You probably get drama anyways, but you'll get less drama if you're right there.
Mm-hmm.
But positioning, communication with people, having to make quick decisions. Don't think that's anything different than real life unless I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Applying those to your real life, that to me is when you really get the value of this thing called sports. When you can apply it to your everyday life, because it's no different. It's no different.
But you know what you're saying there, though, is I think it again goes back to the concept of intention and being open, right? Because when you're intentional about what you're doing and you're open to learning, you can use any and everything as an opportunity to grow and develop in another aspect of life. So you can take, cooking dinner and look at the lesson and putting things together and how things work, how things don't work, how you have to watch the temperature, how long you have to cook something. You can take all of that and then apply it to something else. There's something I roll with a lot, and, concepts and principles transcend circumstance. right? Concepts and principles transcend circumstance. So if you can garner some type of concept or principle or lesson in anything, that lesson, again, it's not directly applicable because it's a different context, but the concept and the principle can be utilized in other aspects of life. And so to your point, that is the value of team sports. You learn so much about working with others. And, I was on another platform not too long ago, and we talked about the show that's on ESPN now or just finished recently, The Last Dance, which talked about, the journey of the Bulls and everything.
Yep.
And one of the things we talked about was the concept that Michael Jordan was the best thing in the league when he first got to the league. Like the moment that he stepped on the court, everybody automatically knew this was the next guy. Like he was the man. He had every award, every individual award, the defensive player of the year, the MVP, the rookie of the year, anything individual that he could have won, he got that initially. But he did not win a championship until they installed the triangle offense, and he finally started relying on the value that his teammates brought to the table. Yeah. That was it. Beforehand, he would score 40, 50 points and do his thing, and he still did that some when he needed to afterwards, but he did not win championships until he started relying on the others on his team. And I think that, to me, was one of the key lessons that we can all learn, that yes, we can get all the individual accolades, right? But we're not going to win a championship until we start involving other people. And so, I think that's extremely important, my man.
Yeah. Well, again, it comes down to that concept that it's got to be bigger than you.
Yeah. Whoo.
Right?
It's always.
It's got to be bigger than you. You did not come in the world by yourself, so you can't do it all by yourself.
That's real. That's real. And so thinking of that and kind of looking at the history, you mentioned it all started. I was thinking about Biggie Smalls. He said it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, right? For Dr. Vibe, it was all a dream. You used to read, what was the book that you read?
Black Men Obsolete, Single and Dangerous. Another influence on me was way back when Tavis Smiley. When he was originally on BET. But
absolutely.
I really started to delve in when he was on PBS.
Yes, right. The Tavis Smiley show. Yep.
I loved the conversations he did there. And I said, you know what? I want to do that.
Man, I'm going to tell you, speaking of Tavis Smiley, it's interesting. He wrote a very influential book that I thought was extremely impactful. It's called Death of a King, which documented the last year of Martin Luther King's life, from the time in which he gave the speech on Vietnam to he was assassinated almost 1 year to the day after he gave the speech on Vietnam. And so that book, Death of a King, written by Tavis Smiley, documented that last year of Dr. King's life. And so Tavis he opened up the world to the notion of doing unique conversation with, as he say, black folk. That's how he would say, black folk. around the world. But it was awesome, man. He opened up the window.
Tavis is in another situation.
Absolutely.
But I remember he came to Toronto one time, and I was blessed enough to spend 10 minutes with him. And I shared what I was doing, and he said, "Keep at it, man. Keep at it. Just keep at it." So it's good. You get those things along the way. You don't want them all the time, but when you get them and they're from a valuable individual, a resource, and it's meant from the heart, that's like $1 million being put in your bank account.
That is. And so thinking of that, like, I also want to get back to, how did you come up with the name, or how did you get the name Dr. Vibe? Yeah, right. Like, give some history on that, man.
Okay, so again, these are my hair days. I was working at Adidas Canada. I was their inside rep for soccer.
Okay.
For their independent retailers right across Canada. So I did inside sales for them. And at the same time, I was the marketing representative for a major record company. And it was pretty interesting at the time, because I was the second Black person hired in the offices of Adidas Canada in their history. I was the first Black person given a major marketing position for a record label in this country.
Wow.
So some people say, well, that's like amazing. You're working with athletics and you're working in the entertainment. So the 9 to 5 was Adidas. And then outside of that was with this record company. And one year they had, Adidas had a Christmas party, and I wonder who was DJing at that. I can't remember, but the DJ was on fire. I was getting into it. and the product managers, I'll give his name, Stuart Smith. I
Mm-hmm.
remember it.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Man, you got the vibe. You're Dr. Vibe."
Wow.
That's it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So Dr. Vibe came because you were in the groove one night and you had the vibe. And now I got a question. What was it? No, we don't want to go with, I was going to go somewhere else about the song, the vibe. Yeah, but that's,
that's R. Kelly.
No, we're not going to, we're not talking about, yeah.
No, I was just getting into the music and
yeah.
You got the vibe, you're Dr. Vibe. Bang. You know what? I've got to search him on LinkedIn and see if, hope God willing he's still alive. I got to say, Stuart, I got to thank you.
Mm-hmm. You got to thank Stuart because Stuart was the jump off for Dr. Vibe.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it, man. Because when I heard Dr. Vibe, I didn't know where that came from and all of that. So it's pretty neat. And it's funny how names and, like nicknames and all of that stuff, how they come about, because sometimes they're very orchestrated, right? Okay, you became this because of that. But the reality is you were just in the vibe at a particular moment. Yep. And it's like, you're Dr. Vibe. Let's roll.
And I thought that would be good because of brand awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get some people say, "Are you a real doctor?" Well, how many real doctors would call themselves Dr. Vibe? Well, that's all right. It's another story. But no, and that's been the brand for years, right? So that is just rides on, Dr. Vibe Show. And again, it's great because when you put Dr. Vibe in any search engine, most of the time I'm going to be either one or two.
I love it. I love it. And so Dr. Vibe came into being in regards to helping to facilitate conversations between, men, Black men, fathers from, around the world. And it's literally started from when you were exposed to the book in the bookstore, which really just pricked your spirit to say, I need to do something and I need to do something now. And this thing has evolved, grown, and it literally progressed to have impact on all the corners of the globe, right now, which is a powerful thing. And you're based out of Canada. And so I'm based out of Knoxville, Tennessee, which is, south of your border. And my conversation, Black Fathers Now, I speak to brothers from all over the world, but the overwhelming majority of the audience and the overwhelming majority of the guests are from the United States, right? That's the majority of it. But we do have little, snippets here or there in which, other parts of the world are touched. My question to you, when we think about Blacks in Canada or Black males in Canada and Black males in the United States, what, to your experience or from your perspective, are some of the differences in the experience of Black men in Canada versus Black men in the United States?
One thing, that's a great question. One thing I will share with you, during my journey, I realized and came to know that most Black men around the world have shared experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think there probably isn't a lot differing between Black men in your country, Black men in my country. Interesting enough, still to this day, the majority of my audience is in your country. And again, getting back to don't let the opportunities define your objectives. When I first started this journey, and it's still to this day is a little bit of a fact, that it's more challenging for me to get Black individuals on my platform from this country than in the US.
Wow, man. That's interesting. I think actually when the group that we're in with Doug, he even used I forgot the actual analogy, but it literally leads to the whole notion of a lot of times we're celebrated outside of our city, or we're celebrated outside of our network before we're celebrated back home. Because back home, you're like, oh yeah, that's just Dr. Vibe. I mean, that's my boy from around the corner. They don't really see the impact that you're having. Whereas if you take that and you're in Knoxville, Tennessee, or Miami, or Los Angeles, they're like, yo, Dr. Vibe is kind of doing his thing. Vice versa, Black Fathers Now, I'm based in Knoxville, Tennessee, but in other parts of the world, or, people reach out to me via social media or an email or whatnot, they're a little more interested in what's going on, because around here, hey, that's just Mike D. I know that's my boy from the gym, or that's my guy from around the corner. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon.
People love the familiar. And sometimes that's okay, but other times you're being lazy, because the more you know, the more you need to know.
Absolutely.
Actually, another person I need to shout out Freddie Coleman of ESPN.
Okay.
I've been a long time fan of his broadcasting skills. And I remember many years ago, I reached out to him. He actually came on my platform,
Mm-hmm.
and we follow each other on Twitter. And whenever I DM, he answers back.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Freddie Coleman, even though he talks about sports, I love his professionalism. I love his honesty. Solid brother, great family man, much respect. Like many nights when I go to bed, I'm listening to Freddie Coleman just to keep inspired and just learn from him. I regard him like a digital mentor. Even though he talks about sports, I learn and glean from him to help me have a better online presence.
Mm.
So I think that it's just really important. But yeah, most of my audience is the United States right now. But now it's now getting a bigger market now in Canada, and now I'm being blessed to host conversations like, Minister of Child, Family, and Social Development. Earlier on this month, I hosted a conversation with the lady who's in charge of the Canadian Human Rights Commission.
Wow.
So again, and those people aren't like the lady from the Canadian Human Rights Commission. She's not Black, but I'm hosting the conversation.
Absolutely.
And I'm bringing and I'm exposing the audience to people like that, and also making the other people on the other side of the aware of the audience on the other side of the camera.
You're a bridge builder.
Yeah, connector.
Connect.
I don't like the N word. I like connector and community.
Connector and community, dude. And I literally wrote down on my little notepad here: community over network. Yeah, community over network. It's one of those things where I wrote it down so that I can internalize it myself, because truthfully, I want to refrain from using the word network. I want a community around me, because when you have a community, you're serving, and those that are in your community serve as well. And this, when you start thinking about cooperative economics and, the village and, neighborhood. I was listening to something the other day, and it was talking about the challenge, especially in the Black community now, is we have all hoods, but no neighbors. So we've pulled out the whole concept of neighborhood, and it's just a hood now. So we have to build that neighbor back in there in regards to kind of building the concept of community.
Interesting you mentioned that. A lot of people will say, and people may push back on me on this, we may not have a Black community. What we have is a lot of Black neighborhoods. And we don't have the community village that we say we have. We have a lot of neighborhoods.
Well, and hold on. I would even say, again, based off of, I forgot where it came from, but I would even say it's not even a lot of neighborhoods. It's just a lot of hoods. Because if you have neighborhoods, that means you have neighbors. Neighbors look out for each other, and that's kind of an insular community. So if we actually had a lot of neighborhoods, things would be a little bit better. But we have a lot of hoods, not neighborhoods. But then the community at large, from, I guess, the Pan-Africanist perspective, is something that we're still needing to work on. But it's funny we're even having this conversation, because the other part to it is we have to go back to the lineage of being originally from Africa, right? And so when you look at the history of Africa and the colonization of the continent, and how, the countries that are currently in place were not country lines drawn by the people of the continent of Africa. Those were lines drawn by the European powers that came in the scramble of Africa. That's how you had, multiple tribes homogenized together in one country. But then internally, that also led to a lot of fighting in a lot of the countries, because you had one tribe who did not want to be associated with the other tribe. So there was this whole connectivity in which you were thrown together and you didn't really want to be together. And so the concept of this the Pan-Africanist concept that a lot of us really aspire to, in which we create this broader community, we create this broader, family, this broader neighborhood, so to speak, is something that we have to really get back to the roots and fix from there, and then reverse engineer it to get to where it is we want it to be, because we're not necessarily looking at the historical context of why we were divided to begin with. And so, so to your point, I see a lot of, opportunity there, but I also see a lot of challenge, because inherently we are tribal. And, when we're inherently tribal, sometimes it's based off of race, sometimes it's based off of various religious beliefs, or sometimes your tribal, history or your tribal ancestry. there's a lot of stuff there that we have to get to the root of and find those strands of connectivity so that we can then find the ties that bind and then focus on the connectivity versus the differences. And once we can do that, then as a whole, we get away from just having hoods or just having neighborhoods and to the point that we have a really collective community in which we can tap into from all over the globe, not just in the zip code next to you.
Agreed. No, you know, I don't know what, if I might as well drop this now because we may not get time, and I have a feeling we're going to be doing a part 2 the way.
I think so too. I think so, 100%.
So this is, I'll give a great example of true community. When my dad celebrated his birthday 2 years ago, at one of the tables, there were 20 people that he has known for over 50 years. Mm. And the core group stay in touch with each other every day.
Wow.
They don't go 2 days without calling each other and just chatting. Now, yes, they have that time, but they make a point of it every day.
Wow. 50 years.
Yes. So my question to the Black men that are listening out there, if you had a birthday party, would there be 20 people, either in person or digitally, that would show up that you've known for at least 20 years? Mm.
That's interesting.
When I saw that, I went, wow.
But you know, man, I think but that's a very deep question, and
yes,
I think that,
I just thought about it.
Yeah, and it's something for us to consider, but it's also from the standpoint of, I look at this from the standpoint of being able to evolve in your relationship, right? So I remember a friend of mine years ago mentioned to me that you have people in your life for reasons, seasons, and for a lifetime, right? And most of us have people in our lives, they come and go, they're just there for a reason. So maybe while you were in college, you had a core group of buddies y'all hung out with, but then when you graduated, everybody went their separate ways. Or when you have kids or you move into a particular neighborhood, or, you know, I can think about to previous jobs. When I worked at previous jobs, the guys that I worked with or the girls that I worked with, you know, those were like my core friends that I talked to all the time because we worked together. But the moment that I changed jobs or they changed, we no longer spoke anymore. You know, it was like there were reasons.
And life happens.
Mm-hmm. And life happens.
But the thing is, even up to yesterday, I got a call from a gentleman who I've not seen in 15 years. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, he wants to see how I'm doing. Second of all, he needs help with online stuff. But mm-hmm. leaving that good impression, I think one of the questions that's coming out in my mind is to our Black men and those who love them out there. If you had a dinner and there's you and 3 other placemats, who would be, first of all, would you be able to fill those placemats? Who would you invite? Mm-hmm. And also, could you fill those 3 placemats?
Mm. Literally, those are questions we have to ask, you know, and you know, but again, it goes back to what I was saying about the notion of we have to understand how to evolve and grow in our relationships as well. And I think that is a skill that some of us don't either desire to develop the bandwidth for or currently don't have, because it's like when we use something or we're, you know, things are convenient, it's cool, right? But the moment that thing is no longer convenient is the moment that I don't really have time for it. I need to move on to something else. And I think sometimes we do that in relationships. Sometimes we do that in, you know, stuff in your house. It's time to throw this away and try something new, or get rid of this car and get something new, or whatever. I think sometimes we do that because either we don't have the bandwidth, or it goes back to when we were talking about opportunity and intention. We're not looking for the opportunity to preserve, to grow, or find a different use for, or find a multi-purpose use for that thing. And so I think relationships, in essence, fall into that bucket as well, because sometimes we don't find a different purpose for that. So for instance, you know, you're married, I'm married. So the relationship that we had, or relationships that we had prior to being married, where we could spend more time with our buddies and hang out and do this and do that, that stuff changes a little bit, right? And go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt this.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I think that when it looks, and I share this with many people, Are your relationships an investment or an expense?
That's deep. Are your relationships? I'm going to write that down because that's something I want to ponder a little bit later.
Because if they're an expense, who wants expenses?
Mm-hmm.
And now just to like drive the investment part a little deeper, if you are a good investor, keeps that investment in and lets it grow.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't just make his money and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's room for that,
Yes.
but many people will invest. The smart people will invest unless they really just want a quick return.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people that will do an investment and say, "Oh wow, Apple stock has dropped $10 today. I got to get out of it." Really? Really?
Mm.
That's your investment should be an investment. Your relationship should be an investment.
Man, hold on. I see this. It's interesting. You're saying this. I did an episode, probably about a year or so ago, and it was a quick episode in which I was trying to drop it. I was dropping some thoughts to the audience, and it was the realization that I came to realize that I am an investor, not a trader. Right? I'm an investor, not a trader. So probably about a year and a half ago or so, I started playing with doing some options trading, just learning how to trade, buy and sell treasury bonds and all of that. And truthfully, I did it for a little bit, and I did not like the anxiety that it caused inside of me. Right. And
Yep.
I came to realize that naturally I am not a trader, meaning I don't want to day in, day out trade and read indicators and wait for this to happen. And that's not my thing. I don't find joy in that. I mean, I'm more of, from a financial perspective, I want to find things that I can invest in and let it go. If we need to change things or tweak things here or there, that's fine. But I don't find joy in the day in, day out management of, trading this and trading that. And so I think it's maybe less thinking about it from an investment versus an expense perspective. And are you more so an investor or a trader? And then as it pertains to relationships, if you are an investor, you look for value things. You look for, when I say value things, you look for values that are aligned with yourselves that you can then hold on to, because even if you have differences, those values stay put throughout the turmoil, throughout the roller coaster of life. If you're a trader and you're looking to, and that to me is interesting, thinking of something you dropped earlier about the concept of community versus network. If you are a trader, you're probably more so looking for a network. And when you have a network, that's something that you tap into when you need it. But then when you don't need it, you put it back on the shelf. Whereas with an investment, it's about the community. You're trying to figure out ways for this whole thing to holistically grow, build, and develop over time. And so as it pertains to relationships, are your relationships predicated on investing, or are they predicated on trading?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Like, it's just and it's literally coming full circle with the points that you dropped throughout this conversation. And it's making me really think about it from the standpoint of, are my relationships an investment, or is it basically just a trading account in which I'm trying to ride a wave, when I need it?
One of the things I do is every few months I take a look at all my relationships and see where they stand.
Ooh.
And it's sort of like a balance sheet of where the relation and sometimes you just have to let go of some relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And as Sting said many years ago, if you love somebody, set them free.
Mm-hmm. Man, look, relationship assessment. Like, I honestly believe that's something, fellas, I hope you're paying attention to that nugget of wisdom that he drops. He dropped multiple ones, but that one in particular, I want you to really think about that. If you think about the concept of your financial statement, like, a lot of people at a minimum at least look at their financial statement quarterly or every so often, or annually. You go to
not more should, but not as many as we're thinking right now.
Yeah,
but
well,
I think right now, yes,
Mm-hmm.
because of vicissitudes of life situation right now.
Mm-hmm.
But even when things are somewhat, you should be keeping an eye on that, because relationships can turn on a whim.
They can turn on the whim. But the thing is, the whole concept of prioritizing, assessing your relationships. Like, I think that is extremely important. Again, a lot of us do that financially, maybe not as many as we need to, but a lot of us do that at least periodically. Same thing like with your health. A lot of us, annually or biannually go and get physicals, or just have a relationship with your doctor, or you go and get your teeth.
Every 3 months here for the last 20 years.
See, there it is. Look at that. And so to that point, we have assessments, so we take an inventory of things outside of that, but how often do we do that with our relationships? And I think that's something that we can all incorporate. This is Black Fathers Now. So we're looking for things that we can incorporate into our lives right now. And truthfully, taking an inventory of your current relationships across the board is something that we should all be doing now and on a regular routine basis and evaluating it. Should we let things go? Should we, pour more into some? Because that's another thing. Some relationships we need to, re-energize, so to speak. And so I think we need to do that. I love that, man. I appreciate that tip, because I think that's really going to help some people.
Just sharing. Sharing is caring, man.
Sharing is caring. So, man, talk to us a little bit now, and we'll kind of wrap this thing up in a little bit. We'll definitely have to do a part 2, because I want to get.
You think?
You think? Maybe so. I don't know.
I have a feeling if we do a part 2, it's going to drain a part 3.
Maybe so. And we might end up with just a standing look, man. Once a month, we're gonna have a Black Fathers Now, Dr. Vibe collab, and just keep it rolling. I'm with it, my man.
I'm more than happy to do that. Like I said, I'm in a sharing part of my journey, and I'm gonna say this to Black men, but men in general. Probably most of the men or males, because there is a difference. That's another conversation.
Okay.
You're watching this. I'm going to put a golf analogy to this. Most of us that are either watching this or going to hear this, we are on the back 9 of our 18 holes of our life. How are you going to finish on the back 9?
That's real. That's real. How are you going to finish?
So that's a golfing analogy. How are you going to finish on the back hole? Or in your calendars, what are you feeling? What's going on in each one of your calendars? What are you writing down? What are you doing in each one of those calendar boxes? Just a thought.
But that's real. And that's that assessment piece. That is the look in the mirror. That is the, where am I now? Where have I been? But then also, where am I going? And what does that look like?
On top of that, too, we were talking about relationships, and there's the word intimacy.
Big time.
Yeah, but I say into me see.
Into me see. I like that. Into me
because
see.
We as men or males, we have to get intimate with ourselves first.
Woo, dude, man, can I tell you? Okay, that literally, there's something, and I've utilized this in various speaking engagements, but one of the things that we talk about is the concept of spending time with yourself versus being by yourself. It's two different things. When you're by yourself, okay, you're just alone. Spending time with yourself means that, again, you're doing the into me see. You're looking in the mirror. You're understanding what's going on. I mean, you can use the example of being with your wife. You can be with your wife, or you can spend time with your wife. Spending time with your wife means you're paying attention to her. You're attuned to what's going on. You're listening. You're paying. I mean, literally, you are paying attention, and you're aware of what's going on. And so that's extremely important. I love that. Into me see before you have intimacy.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so I guess, with what's going on with the Dr. Vibe show and your advocacy for fatherhood and manhood throughout Canada and other parts of the world, is there anything, that, pressing that you would like to share with the Black Fathers Now audience that we can take forward? And also from the standpoint of connecting with you, how can the brothers and the ladies listening to, how can they all connect with you and get more information about the Dr. Vibe show?
There's so many things I'd like to share. I think just some random things. Whenever I have the opportunity to meet with a father or a man, regardless of race, I have about 10 or 15 questions I ask.
Okay.
So I'm going to give about 2 or 3 of them right now.
Okay.
What are 3 things that you're doing that are adding to your life? But also, what are 3 things you're doing that are taking away from your life? Another question I will ask them is, what would you do if you couldn't fail? And a lot of times when I ask that specific question, to a man, most of them look at me like, you could tell by their body language they've never been asked that.
Mm-hmm.
Also to our black men, actually all our black men out there, how is your relationship with your father?
Mm-hmm. It's big.
Hey, so I don't go on Instagram Live a lot, but was it Sunday night I went on Instagram Live and a lady jumped in who I know, and she was really, I know I'm dating, I'm thinking about getting married. What question should I ask this guy?
Mm.
And when I gave that question to her, the relationship we had, even if you didn't have a relationship with your father, impacts you.
100%.
But a lot of times people don't think about that aspect of a black father or a black man's life. Kenneth Braswell, who
Yep.
leads Fathers Incorporated,
Mm-hmm.
he said something when I finally had him on a few months ago, that he said, every father has a father. The question is, where is that father?
That's it. That's it. I actually had Kenneth Braswell a couple of episodes on my show as well, a couple of episodes ago. So absolutely.
Right. So I really think that everything a black man does has an impact on at least one other person.
Mm.
If you're a father, whether you realize it or not, everything you do has an impact on your kids, no matter what age they are.
Mm. Mm.
Let me say that again. No matter what age they are. They may be gone living somewhere else. You have impact on them still.
Mm.
Another thing I will share, especially to black fathers, if with the children, let's hope, well, probably for most of us, we're not going to live as long as them.
Mm-hmm.
We want our kids to do fine, etc. Well, I ideally look at this situation, visualize it. 30 plus years, you're in another place, hopefully a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Your child or children are living in whatever place. Hopefully it's a decent place. First of all, will they have a picture of you in that place?
Mm.
If they don't, that's not a good thing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, if someone points at that picture, what do you want your child to say about the person in that picture?
Wow. Legacy. I mean, and that's deep, and again, what you said there, which makes it really hit home, was before you started talking, you said, visualize this. And when you allow yourself to park there for a second and visualize 30, 40, 50 years from now, 60 years from now, however long, you have left in life and all of that, and your kids are now doing their thing with families, kids, maybe even grandkids of their own, and you're long gone, and there's a picture there, and somebody asked them, who is that in the picture? And tell me something about that person. What would they say about you? And when you try to visualize that, it's interesting because, again, this is called Black Fathers Now. So it's about bringing insight, inspiration, and wisdom that the brothers can apply to their lives right now. And when I think about that, and when I stop and I visualize it, it makes me really just more intentional about, once we shut this interview down, I'm going to go and do or say something to my kids that'll be memorable, that they will, they can carry forward with them. Or even if it's just a hug, they'll know that, man, dad gave me the best hugs, or, dad was always X, Y, and Z, or the way he treated mom was X, Y, and Z. Like that, it really struck home for me in that particular moment. And so, fellas, I hope y'all stopped and took a moment to visualize that.
Can I add two more really quick things?
Yes, go ahead, brother.
First of all, one of them I've forgotten already, but let me just, okay, well, I'll just add the one I can remember right now.
That's okay.
Things bouncing around in my head. My father, again, I mentioned how he still has these friends.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is not doing well. right? He's older man. He's like in his 90s, walking around the house. He's falling because one of his knees is very weak. So my dad and his another close friend, they all three know each other for years.
Mm-hmm.
My dad and this other gentleman are basically the executors of his will,
Mm-hmm.
this gentleman's will. And I've known this gentleman who's not doing well health-wise for a number of years. And about 2 weeks ago, my dad invited me over to his house and he says, I got something to show you. I said, okay. It was this gentleman's will.
Wow.
Here's the real heart point. In the will, my father and the other gentleman are the executors.
Mm-hmm.
This gentleman in his will said, if one of these gentlemen pass away, I am next in line to fill in.
Wow. Wow. You.
And yes,
Mm.
this morning we had a meeting, all three of us, with the gentleman who's ailing, because we're interviewing in-care help.
Mm-hmm.
And we did the interview, etc. And he said, well, man, you haven't been around here forever. I said, well, I care. And then I said to the gentleman, I said, look, I am so humbled that you put my name in your will.
Mm. Wow.
That's what I'm talking about.
Legacy. But that also goes back to the notion of this is not a network. This is a community. Because that means that it's all predicated on service.
Think that's the first time my name is in. I have a copy of it. It's in a will. Do you know how humbled and how touched I am by that?
Hmm. Wow.
To be valued by someone that much.
Hmm. That's not your biological father. That's a friend. That's a close friend of your father.
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
See, and I'm gonna tell you what's so interesting about that, man. Like that really, the depth of relationship. It's I was listening to Eric Thomas do a talk, and he talked about how one of his buddies, one of his really good friends, fell on hard times and all of that. And he came to him, and Eric said, "Look, I can't give you money, but I can make a couple calls and get you a job, right?" And so Eric said he picked the phone up and called one of his friends. And he said, "Hey, my boy is on hard times. Is there anything that you can do?" He said, sight unseen, without a resume, without anything else, just based off of his word and the relationship that Eric Thomas had with this guy. He literally just said, "Hey, tell him to give me a call." And the guy gave him a job, paying him a great amount of money, just based off of the relationship that he had with his friend. Mm-hmm. And so that, to me, fellas, when you think about the power of relationship, and again, I'm really going to take something from Dr. Vibe and incorporate this concept of using community over network, because I think that is so important, because community means that there's some relationship there. And when you have a deep relationship there, you don't need all the other stuff, all the credentials, all the whatever, because we have a relationship, and all of this is predicated on service. It's predicated on the greater good. It's predicated on giving. And so when we can do that, and we do that across the board, that's when we all win, and we all win big.
Yeah, as you're sharing, I got some things I want to get them out. So
come on with it.
I also want to make this out to the brothers out there, wherever you are. If you can have 3 other brothers, no matter what color they are, mm-hmm. know everything good about you and everything bad about you. Mm-hmm. As we used to say it in the day, ride or die.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Ride or die. Also, whenever you have a success, I don't care how big, I don't care how small, say yes. I don't care where you are. Celebrate that moment right here and there. And you don't care who's around. Mm-hmm. In fact, if people are around and they ask you why you're doing that, you tell them. You mm-hmm. brag about your success. You brag about the work it took to have that success, because we've got to celebrate the moment. Doesn't matter how big or how small they are. Little things make or break the vine. It's not when big things happen, it's not that they just happen. There are a lot of small things that happened along the way to make that big thing happen. But celebrate those little small things. Celebrate those little small things that, maybe the next conversation I can share with Mike how the collaboration came out with Dove Men Care. That's a whole conversation in themselves. That's a whole conversation. And that was like, that's a whole, but say those yes. And if you're within a family or you have a close group, practice I do it on Sundays, even if it's by myself. What are the 3 wins you had every week?
Man, fellas, celebrate wins in the moment. No matter how big or how small, celebrate those wins. Celebrate the wins of the week. Celebrate the wins of the month. Celebrate the wins of the year. Celebrate those wins, because you have to find that motivation. When you look at courage and confidence, courage comes in spite of, confidence comes because of, right? And so how do you build courage to go along the way, and how do you build confidence? When you think about the notion of confidence, it's because of something. So when you have these little wins, you don't realize that these little wins add up. Make sure to celebrate those in the moment. Make sure to also prioritize. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to drop something else?
No, finish up. I don't want to be rude. Go ahead.
No, you're good, man. This is. Okay, I'm just reiterating what you're saying, brother.
I'm going to share. These days, I just share stories.
Come on.
My own journey.
Come on.
Talking about the courage thing. I'm going to give you a story. About November 2018. And I'm shortening the story, because it's a longer story. I had the opportunity to MC an event called the Men and Masculinity Summit. Okay. The funny thing is, before the summit, they didn't even know who I was, but that's a whole story how that happened. We can talk. We can share about that whenever you want. But hosted that summit was a Saturday night thing and an all-day Sunday thing. I was front stage for the whole thing. And during that event, there's a gentleman named Jerome Tinkelsling. I hope I get his name right. If not, Jerome, my head, not my heart. And we gave an award for celebrating International Men's Day, but she was part of the founders of it. Let alone a week ago, says Dr. Vibe, we're holding an online event called the World Day of the Boy Child. Would you like to share on it? I'm going, usually I like to get a little bit of notice, but I said, okay, let's just roll it. Now, this was great because there was an online event. Notice the words I use, not presentation, event.
Absolutely.
With scheduled about 8 sharers, because I don't like seeing the word presenter or speakers, sharers from all around the world. Ghana, Mexico, myself from Canada, New Zealand, etc. And believe it or not, I did not have anything in my heart to share until like 9 o'clock the night before. And even then I was going, I came on, I just shared from my heart. And I was humbled because after the sharings, all the sharers finished, people were asking me questions. I had a 14-year-old from Ghana asking me questions. What I'm going to say is you don't have to be courage. What's the word? You don't have to be brave or courageous. You don't have to be courageous all the time. You have to be courageous at the right time.
That's the moment. It's not all the time. It's the right time. And as long as you have the capacity to be courageous when you need to be, as long as you have the capacity to be confident when you need to have it, everything else falls into place. Because truthfully, nothing is meant to be there 24/7 all the time. We turn on, we turn off, we got to rest, we got to let our mind chill.
Every Superman has his kryptonite.
Man, everybody has a kryptonite. We all do. We all have a kryptonite. But then we also have to recharge, right? Because we're not, folks see me in public or we talk and all, and they're like, man, you're just so full of energy and this and that. It's like, yeah, I am at times, but then I'll tell you, there are also times when I'm just chilling. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm relaxing, because you have to recharge. And so to your point, you got to have that courage. You got to have that, that confidence at the right time. And when you have it at the right time, when you can turn it on, when you need to, everything else works.
That's a gift. And
It is.
my last message to everyone out there, regardless, um, there are some people who are just trying to get by moment by moment, especially during this time in history. And this is a generational moment,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think we'll have another moment like this where everybody in the world is affected directly or indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
Robert F. Smith, people may or may not know who he is. He's a very, very wealthy
Mm-hmm.
gentleman,
Absolutely.
philanthropist.
Yep. He paid off the debts for the brothers graduating at Morehouse College.
Exactly. He was
Mm-hmm.
interviewed the other day, and he said a quote that if you can apply it, do it. He said, "Don't waste this crisis."
Mm.
I'll leave with that.
Don't waste this crisis. And, you know, I think that's a good place to end. So
Yep.
where can everyone find you, find information on you? And I'll have it in the show notes.
Well, usually I'm under a rock, but you know, I just the best place to reach or find out some of the madness that I do and go through is the drvibeshow.com. Has
Okay.
all my conversations there. I post articles from other sources there. That's my home. The next time we're on with Mike, if he allows me to come back on, there's a new initiative that I'm going to be starting later on this week. Another new journey, because I always like to have 2 steps ahead.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'd rather be dead than bored.
I like
Right?
that. And look, let me tell you something. I tell my kids only boring people get bored. When they come to me saying, "Oh, I'm bored," and only boring people get bored.
Yeah, and if you let people pigeonhole you, all you'll ever be is a pigeon.
Fly like an eagle, fellas.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So
oh man,
I'd like to say, Mike, thanks for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule. With all my conversations, whether I'm on this side or I'm on your side, I always say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim higher, aim wider, aim deeper. I thought that's it. Bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim deeper. Yes.
Man, I thank you, my brother. I thank you for your magnetism, because you're
showed up.
Yeah, you just showed up.
Well, you know what? Save that thought, magnetism, because next time we come on, I'll share your story, part of the Dove Men Care journey, which I was able to show magnetism over a phone with people I had never met before. It was a game changer over a phone conversation with 3 people that helped the process with the collaboration with Dove Men Care. And there were some questions in there that, in a good way, caught them off guard, that made them think. So there was some strategy. There's some method to the madness. Being strategic is very important.
Well, fellas, you're going to have to tune in to the next interview we do with Dr. Vibe to get the story on Dove Men Care and how that came about, but then how magnetism really came into play for this brother, because he mentions he's a magnet for miracles and a solution to someone's problems. And the more and more you spend time with him, you see it in action. So, brother, thank you so much.
It's a blessing. Thank you for allowing me to share, and look forward to it. And if I can help someone even move an inch in your country, it's a centimeter in our country. Let's see how we can make it happen. God bless, peace well, and keep the faith. Walk good.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Now, fellas, as always, make sure to visit blackfathersnow.com. Subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. Make sure to share this with any and every brother that you know in the world. My goal is I want Black Fathers Now to be the #1 podcast for Black fathers anywhere in the world, and I need your help to do that. So continue to share.
You're blessed, because I would call you and ask you how you're going to do that, but that's the next episode. So get ready.
Come on with it. Well, yes. So start by sharing this with your network, and we're going to make this thing happen, because at the end of the day, you know, Black Fathers Now is here to to bring information, inspiration, and wisdom to brothers, because we want you to take action now and become the best man that you can be. And when you become the best man that you can be, by default, you'll end up being the best father that you can be. We're taking Black fatherhood, we're taking the average of Black fatherhood and making it excellent. So excellence in Black fatherhood is about to be the new average, and we're doing our part to help usher that in. So again, make sure to visit blackfathersnow.com, subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts, share this thing out. Make sure to follow Dr. Vibe. Visit the drvibeshow.com. Follow him on Instagram.
Or the Twitter handle is right up there too, folks.
There you go. The Twitter, if you're looking at this on YouTube, the Twitter handle is at Dr. Vibe Show, but I'll have it in the show notes for those that are listening, via your favorite podcast app. Subscribe, listen to a show, let them know you heard about them on Black Fathers Now, and let's keep this conversation going. And fellas, ladies listening to, and everybody else, until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.